Welcome, Steph, to the Fempreneur podcast. You're from offtheclockresumes.com, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Tell us a bit about yourself, including where in the world you are right now.
Yes, I am just outside of Spokane, Washington on the west side, and I am I've been a certified resume writer for almost 10 years now. I've been running my business for about 10 years, which is exciting. And I help job seekers land more interviews and better job offers at the companies they'd love to work for with their resumes, their LinkedIn profiles, their job search plans. That's in a nutshell what I do.
Awesome. Well, let's just get right into the backstory behind why you started your business. What kind of challenges, I guess, did you face, or what kind of personal things happened to you that made you decide to do this as your business?
So, my story started out where I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do for my career. I didn't go into a four-year university right away. I moved out of my hometown. I kind of bounced around different jobs trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was working on a 2-year degree, just something, basic to get the prereqs out of the way, but I had absolutely no direction. I knew I loved writing and I wanted to find a way to make that a career. And I didn't have a lot of great guidance in that area. I was basically told technical writer or some kind of teaching, which I didn't want to do at the time. So I started looking into freelance opportunities. I did a little bit of everything from, website copywriting to social media. I did a little bit of manuscript editing. I did a little bit of everything as a freelancer, fell into resume writing completely by accident. I responded to a Craigslist gig ad for no experience needed resume writers. And I thought, hey, I'll give this a shot. And I absolutely fell in love with it. I found out there's a whole industry around career services. I learned as much as I could from some of the organizations I joined and the colleagues that I met. And that's really how I got my start. I didn't fully commit to off the clock resumes until October of 2014. So that's why I said we're coming up on my 10 years. But honestly, it's just been a really exciting career choice for me. I've learned so much about so many different types of people and the work that they do. And it's just been a really great experience for me.
Cool. And I noticed on your website you have a few different things for sale there, like just quick and easy things that people can grab all hours of the day or night. Tell us a little bit about the kind of stuff you have available on your website for people looking for a job.
So primarily for the last 10 years, especially I'd say first 8 years of business, I would say I was mostly a service provider working one-on-one with clients. Right around the time COVID shut things down and really started, turning things upside down with, furloughs and layoffs, I started building my first course. And I really didn't have a strong vision for what I was doing with my course other than an alternative to working with me, a cheaper option, something that they could get my expertise without having to, wait to get on my calendar or spend, hundreds of dollars, for my one-on-one attention. And so I came out with my first course and I have really built out a job search shop that has resume templates designed to get through applicant tracking systems, but also stand out to recruiters in all the right ways. I also offer courses for very specific, job search strategies, whether you're applying for jobs online and trying to get through ATS. Maybe you're applying for federal jobs specifically. I have a specific course for that. I have a couple options for LinkedIn networking, LinkedIn profiles. I've really built out a pretty thorough job search shop where my job seekers, my audience can go and get my expertise on demand.
Wow, that's fantastic. So a few of the things that I wrote down, specific questions to ask you that I wouldn't normally ask other people that don't specialize in, your area of expertise with resumes and helping people get out there. The first one you mentioned networking, and so I know for most people, and in my community of female entrepreneurs, networking often feels like a chore for a lot of them, and I do find that there's a direct correlation between the level of creativity and the level of I guess just wanting to stay home and not go to talk to people and just stay home and be creative. So
Right.
there's like a direct correlation there. And that really just doesn't bode well with what people are trying to achieve in their businesses. So talk a bit about how to take that networking thing and turn it into something that's more fun and maybe more energizing, and just how people can get more out of their networking hours?
My personal experience with networking is I absolutely hate it. I used to go to networking events locally, especially early on in my business, thinking, this is how I'm going to make connections, and there's going to be higher ups that might want my help versus someone who is a business owner. It was just a different way of going about networking, but I hated it. I hated feeling like I was trying to come up with conversation starters and not seeming um, cliche or out for myself. It was just really uncomfortable. And I'm also the type I don't like getting put on the spot. It's gotten better over the years, but I know at that time I hated being put on the spot. So whether I had to do public speaking or especially talking to strangers, my voice would waver, I'd be shaking. I mean, it's not the ideal setup for networking. And when I really started learning how to embrace LinkedIn, that's when networking kind of changed in my mindset. The biggest difference for me was joining professional associations because what I found is those contacts that I was making within the career services industry, they weren't just competitors. Yes, they're definitely competitors, but they became colleagues, almost like coworkers for those of us who are working from home who don't have coworkers. We support each other by giving referrals. We help each other out. There's a great Facebook group for one of the organizations I'm in. Sometimes we just rant about, client struggles or specific strategies that aren't working well. And it just became a great community that I was able to learn how to take that onto LinkedIn. And the nice thing about networking is you can change your perspective that it's not something that has to be time consuming or something really uncomfortable. It can just be my definition, turning business contacts into professional friendships. If you know how to make a friendship, if you know how to build a friendship, make a friend, you can do the same thing on LinkedIn or Facebook groups or wherever you're interacting with other people and really make that your strategy so that it's not as uncomfortable. It's just conversation.
Right, right. I love that. I'm just like, I normally have a pen right beside me, and now I'm trying to find a pen. It's like, you just said the perfect thing for this episode title. Anyways, while I'm finding my pen behind my computer, can
Yeah.
you talk more about what you do right now for networking? Obviously, being on podcasts is part of your strategy. Tell us a bit more about what's working for you in the networking world.
I really learned to rely on the contacts I made through professional associations and organizations that are industry based. Mostly because each organization's so different. The first organization I joined was to get my certification. And at the time, they really didn't have a strong training program or networking opportunities. It was more of a certifying organization. They've really branched out since then, but the other organization I joined has, monthly Zoom mixers, and they have an annual conference that they now offer virtual attendance to. And actually, that was really fun during the pandemic, where the first couple of conferences that were virtual, they had almost like speed dating, but networking for their virtual platform. So it was actually really fun. You had 15 minutes to chat with someone, and sometimes you'd get the same person a couple times. And it was more fun that way. So finding organizations that really want to foster that community in your specific or field or industry, I think is so important because it gives you that sense of community, it gives you that support, and it gives you more resources that are targeted for your specific needs.
Okay, awesome. Love it. Um, okay, so if someone's resume is not landing them interviews, what would be maybe the top three things you hear yourself saying to those people over and over again?
One, they're probably focusing too hard on writing for bots, writing for ATS, and they're forgetting that human element. Because if they're so tripped up on all this information online saying you have to write your resume for ATS, you have to have all these keywords, your resume is going to come across as robotic as you're trying to make it be for these robots, essentially. You have to remember that human element. The other thing is kind of in addition to that is you have to think about who's reading your resume. So there's multiple gatekeepers. There's the technology, there's the recruiter or HR person, and then there's the hiring decision maker. That's normally a direct supervisor, hiring manager. Each of these readers is looking for something different. So you have to approach your resume with a balanced approach of writing for each of these different readers in one document. My third top mistake would be really positioning yourself as the best fit for the jobs that you've had, but not the job that you want. I think that's a really hard lesson for job seekers to learn because when we first learn about resume writing early on in our careers, we're told it's all about you. It's about your skills, your experience. That's not necessarily true. A hiring manager, a recruiter, they need to see that you fix their specific problem, that you meet their specific needs. So, tailoring your resume means cutting out older, outdated information, trimming down details that, even though they're important to you, they're not relevant for the new role you're targeting. It's a really difficult mindset to adopt, but it makes all the difference with your resume.
Right. I like that. Yeah, it's really that if you, a lot like as an entrepreneur, you know, putting the proposals out there and landing contracts, it really has to be about them and what they need, in their organization. And I do think that that's something that entrepreneurs tend to be better at maybe than job people. I don't know, maybe that's a little biased, but I feel like people who are
No,
getting
I
jobs.
definitely think that's true. I think, I've even learned from my own experience as a resume writer, I am so much better at marketing myself for my business just because of the things I've learned in branding. And, for example, I did all of my website design development and content writing, and it's evolved over the years, but I've learned how to better address the needs of the people I want working with me and how to talk to them. It's the same principle that I'm trying to teach job seekers is talk the language of the person who's trying to fill a role and what they need, what they want, and then you're going to find that you're getting your foot in the door so much faster.
Yeah, great. And then how do you advise people when it comes to marrying like their resume and that online portion of the job search and then maybe that in-person personal touch component? Is there a way to kind of blend the two that is a go-to strategy that you teach or
I definitely teach that your resume can be the foundation. It's a great way to start crafting a message that is honed in on, the value you offer, the brand that you want to put out there for yourself, and then it's a great foundation that then can be, reworked for LinkedIn, or even a great start for crafting better interview answers. One of the things that I've learned over the years is that the worst interview answers are work philosophies rather than specific examples of how they've done X, Y, and Z. So if your resume has specific examples of how you did X, Y, and Z, you're going to be able to go into an interview saying, not just, well, I believe blah, 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 blah. It's going to be, no, in this situation, I did X, Y, and Z, and this resulted. And that is going to stand out and make such a bigger impact in that interview because you already had it clearly marked on your resume as something you could elaborate on. And LinkedIn is also great for elaborating. I don't like copying or duplicating what's on a resume into a profile. I want the information consistent and I want it to complement each other. But LinkedIn, you can go into so much more detail about projects, community organizations that you are a member of or supporting. You can go into, actual examples of like publications, for example. I've been quoted in quite a few online publications. They're listed on my profile. You could really elaborate on different elements that maybe you should trim on your resume because they're not as specific to that opportunity, but they're still important for your overall brand and your overall message.
wow, that's great. So back to what you said about choosing the examples and the stories over the philosophy. I want some of your examples and stories of, to speak to the fempreneurs, to the entrepreneurs out there who are looking for business growth strategies for, even if you can share an inspiring story about something that you've had to do to pivot. During COVID, you mentioned that you created these courses and you had to do some things that maybe you didn't plan on doing to stay in business. Tell us a bit of the behind the scenes, the grit, the stuff you've been up to in the last few years to keep going.
It's really ironic that you bring that up because I'm in the middle of that right now. I am a first time mama and full-time business owner, trying to figure out how to keep my business afloat while chasing down a very high energy 2-year-old. She just turned 2 yesterday. And I had a lot of really tough discussions with my husband about it. I wasn't enjoying the client work like I used to, but I really loved the digital products and the courses. And I started even at one point considering, what is my future career going to be when I decide not to run my business anymore? What would I want to pivot to then? And okay, how can I make that relevant now in my business? So even, basically telling my clients, I'm sorry, I'm not taking any more referrals. I'm not going to be working one on one. If I have availability and, I give clients the opportunity to check, I'm more than happy to take on new clients as I can, as I feel up to it. But it's not going to be something where you can get on my calendar like that anymore. And if you want to work with me, you start with my courses. I have made it so, especially my resume writing courses, there is a bonus where they can send me their finished resume when they're done. I will review it, give feedback. I'll even make minor edits to it to polish it up. So they still work with me. It's not a 100% hands off alternative, but that's how I'm going to be working with job seekers moving forward. And it's been a really hard decision to make and kind of a challenging pivot, but I'm really excited about it now. It took a few weeks to get to the point where I'm like, okay, this is good. This is what I want. This is all good. It's going to make it so I'm more present with my daughter. It's going to make it so I don't hold the stress of I have to do everything. I have to have, all the things going at once and still be a present and, high energy mom. So it's definitely been a challenge the last year or so figuring out what that looks like, and now that it's up and it's running, and I'm really excited to see, how my business is going to be evolving moving forward.
That's really smart. I love how you basically just say to people, you have to start with the course. This is the starting point for everyone.
Yep.
And if you don't feel this course is right for you, then I'm not right for you. Like these are the people I work with who need this stuff in this course, and then they're going to get a bit of me near the end when they're implementing everything in the course. I really love that. That's really smart. Good for you. That's fantastic. And I'm
Thank
excited
you.
to interview you maybe another 6 to 12 months from now when you're further along in that journey and hear more about how it's evolved and other ways that you've pivoted. That's really cool.
It's funny, I've been working with a virtual assistant for several years now. I couldn't even believe how many years I'd been working with her. It didn't feel like that long. And I basically told her, we're going to take a break and I'm going to kind of trim down some of my business activities, whether that's, she did a lot of my marketing. So now I'm going to be taking on my marketing again. And that's a little scary because I mostly brought her on because I was getting burned out, but now I have a new perspective. I have a new vision for my business. So it's going to be interesting to see, taking on those responsibilities, how that's going to, change, what my branding looks like on LinkedIn or other social media platforms. And I've really been enjoying podcasts, being a guest on podcasts. And I used to hate it. I used to absolutely hate it. I didn't wanna do it. I, would turn down opportunities, and it's changed so much just in the last few years. So, yes, it's definitely been an interesting experience, making the changes that I have been, and I'm excited to see where they lead.
Yeah, I think that like just your story about kind of going deeper instead of wider is really the answer sometimes. And there's a book about it or a podcast about it or both about growth for the sake of growth. It's kind of an
Mhm.
addiction that we entrepreneurs get hooked into, and it just we gotta grow, we gotta grow, we gotta grow. But really, sometimes what we need to do is sit down and take a look at what we actually do really well and
Yep.
can probably automate 90% of it. And like you said, add that little 10% on the end where it's like, yeah, send me your resume and I'll send you some edits and you'll get a little bit
Right.
of one-on-one with me. And I think most entrepreneurs are really just in that growth addiction phase, and they need to step back and think, how do I niche down and simplify for that very niche group of people that I'm already serving? And is there anything else you'd like to add to that, or any other examples you have around that kind of niching down topic?
Yeah, I definitely over the last year or 2 have, um, really found that I enjoy working with IT professionals at all career levels and then also executive leaders with their resumes, their LinkedIn profiles. So I got to a point where I was really, recommending my course for everyone else and really focusing my attention on those clients. And I enjoyed it more. I was more interested in the projects. I felt like I was less on auto mode myself because I could really dive deep into those particular client projects that I was most excited about. It's funny, I think back to when I was freelancing, and at one point I was doing blogging, social media, and some website stuff for a rug cleaning company. And it was really hard because I couldn't invest in the company. I couldn't get behind the company to where like I love writing about it. I'm so passionate about it, but I can for my own business. That's why I've done all of my website copy by myself. I've done all of my marketing up until the last couple years on my own because I was so passionate about it. So now that I'm making changes and I'm kind of pivoting what I do, it's going to come through in all these other areas. Just like, I wasn't passionate about it, this particular industry, this particular field, but now I'm, more excited about courses and these digital products than I am with working one-on-one. I'm still working one-on-one with some clients on a much smaller scale, even beyond, the course participation. I'm still offering critiques. I'm still offering some analysis of job postings and giving guidance on, okay, this is where you would need to rework your resume. But I'm not doing the end to end, let's build out a personal brand and value positioning strategy for you. Let's do end to end resume design and writing and all the revisions. I'm just not doing that type of in depth work anymore. And there are people who need it. Don't get me wrong. And I'm happy to refer them out to, colleagues that I trust. But I also firmly believe what I do is teachable. I've learned over the years that there are strategies, there are tips and tricks that are very easy to learn once you can kind of change your mindset in your job search. And then you don't have to rely on a resume writer. You don't have to rely on a career coach to figure these things out because you understand what's going on behind the scenes. I think that's also really important.
Yeah, like I read. I wish I would wrote down the exact language you use on your website, but it was something about well, it was something about just human nature and getting to know kind of like what's that person on the other end thinking, feeling, needing. And like you said, you can teach people that, right? You can
Mhm.
teach people how to, think about other people's perspectives and not always thinking about themselves, which is I think you should I feel like yeah. Do you know the age demographic of most of your course purchasers, or is that not something you find out?
I would assume I don't have hard data for that, but just because of how my courses are designed and the general, themes around what I'm creating in my courses, I would say they're the 25 to 35,
Yeah.
maybe up to 50. I stretch to say 50. I'd say 25 to 40. I'd say 25 to 40
Okay.
is the demographic that normally goes for my courses.
Yeah.
I typically work one-on-one with an older clientele. They're in their 40s and up,
Yeah.
often executive leaders, often they're IT professionals who have been in it for 25 plus years, and trying to figure out how to pivot in their careers now when they haven't had to look for a job for 7 8 9 10 years, and understanding the technology being used, the best practices in hiring, that's a big part of what I teach. And being able to do that in a course has been really good because I felt like I was saying the same thing to the same people over and over and over again, and being able to put it in a course and say, this is why resume writers do what they do, and this is how you can do it too. It's a different way to approach the career services industry, and I think that it's going to be a really exciting journey to kind of see what happens, like you said, in the next 6 months to a year, and how that continues to evolve.
Yeah, yeah, that's so cool. My son just graduated from grade 12, like from high school here in Canada. So he's now out into the world. And it's so funny because yesterday we were at a restaurant and it's a chain restaurant all across mostly just Western Canada. And we were there and he was working at the one in our hometown. And I'm here where he's playing football now. I'm just up across the border from you. in the
Yeah.
Vancouver area. And I was like, go down and talk to the manager and just say, hey, I'm trained. I'm fully trained to work here. I do all the things and I could use a part-time job. And he was being all shy. And I really worry about his age demographic with that whole like not going out there and talking to people thing. But when I think back to when I was 18 looking for jobs, I was very shy too. So I don't think it really has anything to do with anything but just the fact that when we're that age we're not usually super confident to just go
Right.
talk to somebody that's older than us, right?
Right.
And but it was really neat because the server said something and oh yeah, because he still gets a discount at the restaurant because he still technically works there. And and he was like, oh yeah, I get a discount. And the guy was kind of like, oh, and he's like, yeah, show me like proof that you work here. So he kind of showed him on his phone like, here's my pay stub. And then I was like, yeah, I was like, and he's looking for a part-time job, mom, right? And then my son's kind of like, yeah, kind of am. So then I went out to the car to get something for him. He went to use the bathroom, and then it turned out that the manager came and talked to him and got his phone number. He didn't even have to apply for the job. He's probably
Right.
got a job now. So it's just so funny how we do tend to get really wrapped up in a lot of this the legalities and the formalities of things, but ultimately when things are meant to be, they're meant to be, right? Like if someone's looking for a course that they need, like your course, my course, someone else's course, the right things land in our lap when we're open and we're looking for them. And I'm just curious to know for you around the mindset and the vision for your business. And then even if you want to speak to people who are participating in your course, do you work with them a little bit on the mindset behind getting the job that they want and envisioning it, or is it more technical writing stuff?
I do focus more on the technical side. I think career coaches have a very important job, and it's very hard. It's a difficult job. I am not gifted with the coaching gene, and I am not one to talk a lot about mindset, and maybe that's just because of my own personal struggles that I don't feel, that that's something I feel confident in. Maybe that's just again that imposter syndrome that yes, I've been running my business for over 10 years now, but I haven't been interviewing. I haven't been doing performance reviews. I haven't been supervising. I haven't been. So to coach on that, I don't feel confident in myself. I feel like my wheelhouse is understanding the technology and then how to make that work to your advantage instead of having that, pose as another obstacle between you and the job that you want.
Yeah.
So I do focus very much on the tactical, here's the challenge, here's how we overcome that challenge, not
Mhm.
so much the mindset. I definitely do try to encourage anyone I work with, to try not to overthink it. I think that's a huge, huge obstacle that most job seekers fall into is they're overthinking it because there's so much misinformation online. There's just so much just conflicting information online that they just feel overwhelmed by, what they're supposed to do, what they're not doing right, and then they're trying these different things and it's still not working. But getting back to the basics of this is what's happening behind the scenes. This is what they're looking for. This is what they're telling you they want to see. This is how you take your story and align it with what they're looking for and be able to do it over and over and over again in a way that's not time consuming. I mean, it's a little time consuming, but it's not the same as like trying to do a complete rewrite every single time you're applying for a job. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do like and think I think back to it's been so long since I was trying to get a job. Like I was literally a teenager. And every other job after I was a teenager just fell in my lap, kind of like what happened to my son yesterday. But I always backed it up with a resume because
Mhm.
sometimes you make that connection and then it's like, oh, and you kind of think, oh, they're just gonna hire me because we've met and they like me and I know that this is gonna be great. And they're like, oh yeah, but send me a resume or drop off a resume. Right back in the day, it was drop off a resume.
Right.
And I was like, damn it, now I have to update my resume. But
Yep.
so, it doesn't matter how much you add that personal touch to things. Most places are going to want the resume. And, if they have a sparkling opinion of you, you definitely don't want to tarnish it by handing them a resume with spelling mistakes and weird, language that doesn't connect you to the position that they
Right.
are offering you. And so, yeah, so I just think it's so great that the work that you do is so needed. And I know for my son, who thinks he knows everything and I know nothing. He spent time on the internet researching and finding out things from people like you who, he respects because you do this and this is your wheelhouse. And so it's great that you have all this stuff available. I know that a lot of the listeners here on the Fempreneur podcast are moms of teenagers. So where can they send their teenagers to get these courses to get your help with all this resume writing stuff?
The first thing I would recommend is get them on LinkedIn and get them following people who are actually hiring or connected to people who are actually hiring, whether that's recruiters or certified resume writers, career coaches. Make sure that the information you're taking in is quality information and not this misinformation that's just being shared and misconstrued and making things more complicated. Beyond that, learning the best practices, you can definitely find me at offtheclockresumes.com. I have a resume rescue workshop, which is for the majority of job seekers. I have different editions, and for different career levels, that kind of determines what type of resume template you get included in the course. And then there's some bonuses thrown in there as well, like my cover letter guide and, just getting into the course so that you understand what they're looking for. Younger applicants are going to find they don't have a lot of relevant work experience. So if you're struggling to find that work experience, this course can at least get you thinking of things that to pay attention to while you are working so that you say, okay, this is an example of something I could add to my resume that is a strong example of my communication skills or my problem solving skills. And that's going to help you start crafting a narrative that is going to make a larger impact as your resume develops over time.
Awesome. Wow, that's fantastic. So the courses, the workshops are all at offtheclockresumes.com. Is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with before we hop off, Steph?
Again, I can't promote LinkedIn enough just because it is such a great opening to different people in your targeted field or industry. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any questions or if you would like me to direct you towards people to potentially follow and interact with. My handle is Steph Cartwright CPRW. That's my URL. Active. I'm checking in throughout the week, so happy to connect and respond to messages as I can.
Fantastic. And I will link to your LinkedIn in the show notes so everyone
Thank
can
you.
connect with you there. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy life to do this interview and to share your wisdom with fempreneurs. I know we all really appreciate you and the work that you do. So have a great rest of your day and take care, everyone. You can find out more about me at yycfempreneurs.com. My name is Lindsay Barry. And yeah, my latest book, actually, Steph, I don't know if you know this, my latest book is called It's Time to Write Your Damn Book, Woman. And so for those of you who are ready to package your knowledge into a book, definitely check it out on Amazon. The link is in the show notes. All right, bye for now, everybody.